That's all it took, and by the time anyone inside those gilded palace walls fully understood what had happened, it was already over. Just 5 minutes before palace staff believed every last detail of Prince George's birthday reception was perfectly in place, Prince William reportedly issued a quiet but devastating order that sent shockwaves rippling through Clarence house corridors. Because in those 5 minutes, several of Queen Camilla's most trusted, longest-serving aides were removed from key ceremonial access lists without a single word of explanation, and what looked from the outside like a minor administrative adjustment quickly revealed itself to insiders as something far more calculated. A royal purge unfolding behind closed doors with a precision that left even veteran palace staff stunned. There were no raised voices, no dramatic confrontations echoing through marble hallways, no official acknowledgement from Kensington Palace. And yet the effect was immediate and devastating, because names that had appeared on internal coordination lists for weeks simply vanished. Access credentials tied to senior reception planning were reportedly deactivated within minutes, and staff members who had spent years operating comfortably inside Queen Camilla's orbit suddenly found themselves standing outside rooms they once entered without hesitation. With junior aides initially convinced it had to be a technical mistake, because after all, this was George's birthday, an event deliberately designed to project stability, continuity, and unity at a moment when the monarchy could least afford visible fractures, especially with King Charles's ongoing health battle since early 2024, already casting a long and heavy shadow over every corner of royal operations. But this was no mistake. And insiders say the tensions between Kensington Palace and Camilla's inner circle had been quietly, dangerously escalating for weeks before a single guest arrived at that reception, with some sources pointing to William's growing frustration over what allies allegedly described competing authority streams flowing from Clarence house, while others claimed serious concerns had emerged inside the Wales household about operational leaks surrounding private family events. And whatever the true catalyst, the atmosphere behind palace doors had become, in the words of one staffer, unforgiving, with meetings growing shorter, communication channels narrowing, and trusted figures finding themselves excluded from conversations surrounding George, Charlotte, and Louis, turning what once functioned as a royal partnership into something colder and altogether more dangerous. Circulating through palace circles in the aftermath is a phrase that royal veterans say explains everything: the Here's Accord. An informal but deeply influential understanding reportedly formed between William, Catherine, and a trusted network of senior advisors who believe the monarchy has entered one of its most fragile transitions in living memory, with Charles's cancer diagnosis in early 20. Fears that the crown was dangerously vulnerable to internal fragmentation at precisely the moment it needed to appear unbreakable, and driving William, according to insiders, to become increasingly determined to shield his children from what sources describe as palace factionalism, the ruthless, invisible competition between rival royal households that has always flourished during uncertain reigns. Because Camilla's expanding circle of trusted aides had begun attracting mounting scrutiny, not for any open wrongdoing, but for the quiet, accumulated influence they had built over years, the kind of influence that becomes, in a transitional era, a structural threat to whoever holds the future of the crown. Those who had arrived at the reception that evening reportedly felt it the moment they walked through the door. The warmth that typically fills these royal family occasions was simply missing, replaced by controlled formality, measured smiles, and a silence one insider would later describe as surgical. Because several familiar faces from Camilla's household were nowhere to be seen during key phases of the evening's coordination, and as responsibilities visibly shifted toward figures closely aligned with Kensington Palace, whispers began circulating quietly between senior guests, while William and Catherine maintained an unusually synchronized, almost choreographed presence throughout, every interaction deliberate, every movement precise, which observers who understand palace dynamics read not as simple professionalism but as preparation, as evidence that the Prince and Princess of Wales had arrived that evening not merely as senior royals attending a family birthday, but as the stabilizing nucleus of a monarchy they were already actively reshaping around themselves. And then there was King Charles, described by guests as fatigued and emotionally distant throughout much of the evening, stepping away from larger gatherings multiple times, carrying what sources say was not only the immense physical weight of his ongoing illness, but something far heavier. The realization that he had become caught between two forces inside his own institution, loyalty to Camilla on one side and the accelerating, unstoppable authority of William on the other, a king emotionally stranded inside a transition he could no longer fully contain. In the days that followed, palace corridors entered what one insider described as controlled silence. No formal announcements, no public dismissals, no obvious leaks. Yet beneath the carefully maintained surface of royal composure, a transformation had already begun accelerating with chilling speed. As aides closely linked to Camilla quietly lost significant logistical authority, future Wales family coordination no longer flowed through channels they had helped oversee for years. Ceremonial approvals connected to George, Charlotte, and Louis were redirected entirely through Kensington Palace oversight, and staff members were allegedly instructed to reroute all sensitive coordination requests directly through Kensington Palace rather than Clarence House intermediaries. A detail that sounds procedural until you understand that inside the monarchy's deeply hierarchical world, communication channels are power, and controlling the flow of information means controlling influence itself, which is precisely why palace veterans reportedly viewed the rerouting not as a bureaucratic adjustment but as a declaration. Royal historians will point out that succession eras have always triggered quiet internal restructuring, that during the final years of Queen Elizabeth II's reign, operational authority gradually migrated toward Charles long before the public saw it happening, that the same pattern played out during the reigns of George V and Victoria, and that the monarchy has never waged open internal battles. It reorders itself through silence, through protocol, through the slow and carefully administered withdrawal of access and influence. But what commentators say feels different now is the sheer speed and discipline of William's approach, described by those inside palace circles as more ambitious, more calculated, and far less tolerant of divided influence than anything the modern monarchy has witnessed in decades, all reportedly driven by a philosophy that has become William's guiding principle for the institution he will one day lead: the firm before the family, a belief that the monarchy survives not through competing personalities or overlapping royal courts, but through unity, hierarchy, and an uncompromising centralization of authority around a single unbroken line of succession. What makes it all the more extraordinary is how as invisible remain to the outside world, because beyond carefully curated photographs and polished official statements, the monarchy continues projecting composure and continuity, while behind that surface, insiders say an extraordinary struggle over influence, succession, and institutional control is unfolding with remarkable intensity. And George's birthday reception, which was supposed to be a joyful celebration, a moment of warmth for a family that has endured so much, may have actually been the moment the opening shot was quietly, coldly, and deliberately fired. 5 minutes was all it took to begin reshaping the future of the British monarchy. And the question that palace insiders, royal commentators, and observers around the world are now asking is the same one that veteran staff allegedly whispered to each other in those hushed corridors the morning after. If this is only the beginning, what on earth comes next? And who inside those palace walls will still be standing when it is finally over? Subscribe to Royal Rift, hit the notification bell, and stay close, because this story is moving fast, and you will not want to be the last to know when the next chapter breaks.